This is the Everyday AI Show, the everyday podcast where we simplify AI and bring its power to your fingertips. Listen daily for practical advice to boost your career, business, and everyday life.
One skill that I think no one is talking about ever since we've been riding this huge generative AI wave is storytelling. The ability to tell a captivating tale that brings viewers, readers, and potential customers along for the journey. So that's what we're going to be talking about today on Everyday AI. This is your daily live stream, podcast, and free daily newsletter helping everyday people like you and me not just learn what's going on in the world of AI, but how we can all actually leverage it, how we can leverage it to grow our businesses, our career, and everything else. My name is Jordan Wilson. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm excited. Hey, as a former journalist, I'm excited to have a dedicated episode on storytelling and a great guest to come along with us on today's episode. So if you're joining us live, let me know, where are you joining us from? If you're on the podcast, make sure to check out those show notes. We always have related episodes and other links to help you come and join us on this journey. All right, so before we get into that topic today, let's go over what's going on in the world of AI news, what we do every single day. So, number one, Meta has re-entered the large language model race. So recent reports show that Meta is training a new AI model specifically to go after GPT-4, which right now is kind of the leader of the pack in the generative AI large language learning models. So Meta is investing in a lot of chips and new data centers and everything that a company needs to create a leader in the large language model space. So keep an eye out on that and more in the newsletter as well. So next big story of the day, Google pledged $20 million for a responsible AI fund. So this is from an Axios report that details Google's philanthropic arm. They invested into the Digital Futures Project about a $20 million round to go out to companies that they felt were doing positive things in the world of AI, and to make sure that AI doesn't kind of go into those dangerous pitfalls. So a group of nonprofits and executive or in academic institutions were named the first recipients. All right, and last but not least, AI is outperforming humans in building software. That might not be a surprise for many, but a new study showed that AI agents could develop software in less than 7 minutes and for about $1 in costs. Yeah, that's right. 7 minutes, $1. Crazy, right? So researchers from Brown University and a few Chinese universities tasked an AI-powered agent kind of experiment to create 70 different programs in this study. And they found that on average, it took the AI agents about 7 minutes to develop each of those programs and only cost about $1. Wow, right? When we talk about the future of work, you have to keep AI agents in mind. But today, we're not here to talk about AI agents or the future of work, or maybe we'll talk a little bit about the future of work, but we are talking about storytelling and about AI as well. So I'm extremely excited to have today's guest onto the show. Please help me welcome Doug Thompson. He is owner of thedougthompson.com. Doug, thank you for joining us. Appreciate you coming on the show.
Hey, thanks a lot for having me. Yeah, it's an easy name to remember. I hate trying to remember what my website is, so I just look at that and
just the Doug Thompson. Doug, your experience is all over the place. And I feel I would do an injustice if I tried to quickly recap it on my own. But could you just, quickly tell our readers a little bit about your background, because it's impressive. So I'm going to let you brag on yourself here first.
Oh, well, Jay, I never give me a microphone to brag about myself. So anyway, I am a technical sales nerd by trade, by nature, by most of my career. I spent 20 years at Microsoft before I came to my current employer, Tanium. And it's sort of interesting being a new employee at 60 years old. So it's I'm like Methuselah from the if you look at it from the technology age, started back in the Windows 3. I mean, I remember you used to have floppy disks to put things in. So I've been sort of a nerd, self-taught, just always sort of curious about things. Like I said, and then I I'm a storyteller. I learned that somewhere along the way. We can get into that if you want. I'm actually going to write a chapter for a book coming up here soon about that sort of event where I discovered, hey, I am a storyteller. I
Yeah.
did it unintentionally, but it's just been a fun journey, and it actually sort of led me into the. I know you talk about your favorite role was my AI ambassador role, which we can talk about in a little bit, and it sort of led me to that. So I'm on a mission now to help all my technical sales nerds, just anybody that is out there. You're trying to sell something or relate to another person. Heck, even tell your story.
Mhm.
And I'm here to help you do that because it's storytelling can be taught, but they don't do it in school. They don't really have any of the things that I had to do when I was in school to sort of develop those skills. The texting by phone now has sort of just ripped that storytelling piece out of us because everything's sort of shortened up.
Yeah, it's so true. And let's actually start there, Doug, because like I said at the top of the show, I'm a former recovering journalist, I guess. And it's I think right now, and maybe it is because of AI, because so many people are pumping out just mediocre content
Mhm.
at extreme rates. And I feel as consumers now, we are being just buried in a lot of just copy and messaging that's just not very good
Mhm.
because of how easy it is to create not very good content using AI. So with that, Doug, like
Mhm.
what kind of recommendations and kind of given your background and recent history in really helping others tell stories, how can people still find that good balance between using AI but still telling a compelling story?
Yeah, the biggest things that I see happen is you read a story. And there's two things. One, it doesn't really jive with the audience that they're doing. It doesn't really resonate well. It's just sort of a generic story. Imagine a cartoon with no color and no special characters or anything like that. You watch Mickey Mouse and you expect certain things to happen, right? And you get these things now that come out of a paper or something that you used to trust, and they just don't have any flavor. They're just bland, and they're not even. Sometimes you question the factualness of it.
Mhm.
That some can be suspect, but we're wired to hear stories and learn from stories, but it's a very human thing. It's a very experiential thing. And I talked about that in my TED talk that I did, sort of where stories develop and we're wired to learn from them. And they need to be personalized. They need to do something. So I use Chat GPT, and as we discuss in my podcast that you were on, which drops next week, the Doug Thompson podcast. It's hard to figure these things out. I just my branding is just so bad. But we talked about that is when you start a story. I was talking to a guest on my podcast the other day. He's a dog trainer, and I said, well, obviously you tell nonverbal stories to dogs to train them. And they said, actually, what the very first thing is go meet a dog at their house where they are, where they live, get experience with it. And that's really where you need to start your story is where your audience lives. What's their experiences? What's the words that they use? What is their life like? So that as you're trying to tell a story, that a story is meant to inform, but also in the sales words to convert, right? To show them the value of your product. And if you can't verbalize it, articulate it in their language, then they're just going to, okay, this is just another pitch or something.
Mhm.
You need to do that, right? And you gave me some good tips on how to sort of best use Chat GPT to help do that. But it takes work. You just can't have it spit. The very first draft that it spits out is horrible.
Yeah.
I mean, I have to go back and it's okay. No, do a little bit of this, a little bit of the massaging and stuff with it because I have to put my voice in it. It has to be in my voice. And I think as a journalist there, that you sort of recognize when you could probably recognize, okay, they didn't even try on this one, or somebody wrote it for them that didn't have their flavor and stuff. So that's the key thing of that. And then simply the art of storytelling, where you have the arc and there's struggle and there's other things and the hero's
Mhm.
journey. So those are the two things that I work with. Again, the very first one is starting where the audience lives and making it familiar to them. Right? You
Yeah.
can't write a generic story.
Yeah. Speaking of making it familiar with the audience, thank you for the audience joining and tuning us
Yeah.
tuning in right now. So Bronwyn saying she prefers a book and a pen and then adding it to the computer. Great tip there. And just as a reminder, Yaddy here also remembers the floppy disk era. If you have a question for Doug on either his background in Microsoft, which we're going to get into in a second, or just ways to improve your storytelling with or without AI, go ahead and drop that comment in now so we can get to it. But I'm going to ask.
I want to talk about that book and pen here real quick, because there is scientific study that as you're writing things down, like taking notes in a class, there's studies back when I was back at Microsoft in the education team that typing, you don't remember, you don't connect with a lot of stuff. Where if you're writing, you have to sort of summarize things in your head and make the connection and write that down. So it has a more personal feeling to it. And I think it does resonate. Unfortunately, I can't read what the hell I wrote. So that doesn't help me very much.
Oh man, that's a good point. So I'll ask this, Doug, because being a huge AI advocate and enthusiast myself, I'm always encouraging listeners for the Everyday AI Show and just other people I meet, like, hey, you should start to tap into the world of AI. Because I believe it is the future. All the big companies are, even changing how search engines work and making it more conversational with a chatbot style, right? So what's your advice for people to still, or do you even encourage people to use AI in their storytelling, or should they just go the old school way, like Bronwyn was saying, pen and paper? Like, how can we still tell great stories?
No, I mean, even if you take it further to jobs of the future, jobs today, and I'll go back to when I was an AI ambassador. So when we're coming around with AI, I don't know if Chat GPT was ever even sort of a figment of somebody's imagination back then. Again, I'm talking 5-6 years ago that we were doing this. And the AI ambassador role came out because Microsoft was starting to do a lot of stuff with artificial intelligence, machine learning. And we had to sort of articulate the message of what we were planning to do at the time. And, they were looking for storytellers because, again, AI was just sort of this big, scary, the AI to that point was Arnold Schwarzenegger, I'll be back, right? I mean, that's what it was. And our job here was to relate that, hey, it's best done as a Copilot. I'll use the brand that they're using now.
Love it.
Somebody to help the human be better. So take off some of the tasks and stuff that takes a lot of time, or analyze so much damn data that the human would take decades and decades to do to help make them make better decisions. So it was really there to sort of aid that and sort of articulate that message out. And that's why they had us go along. It was really cool. It wasn't really defined. We went through different iterations before I left, but I got to talk to people and really sort of allay their fear that it's not all evil. Anything can be used for evil,
for sure.
But if you don't sort of embrace it, if you don't do this, and you're somewhat of at a competitive disadvantage. So in the storytelling, yeah, you can use it, especially if you're like me, who has sort of, I try to write and edit at the same time a lot of times. So I get no words out because I can't get anything out. So I'll say, here's an idea, put something out there, let's see. And I end up rewriting I may use about 30% of what is put out, but it helps get me out of where I'm stuck. So yeah, definitely use it, but use it well. Right. And you give a lot of great tips on how to do that.
Yeah. Thanks. And that's, it's something we teach people all the time. We have a little course, Prime Prompt Polish, the PPP method, where we walk people through that and how you can still retain that human voice or those important details of the story and kind of balance with AI. But I do want to hit rewind here, Doug, because this one, we've talked about it. I'm so fascinated. My wife always jokes around and tells me, hey, you're either very early to something or, you were born too late. But I have to talk about you being a Microsoft AI ambassador, for those, 2 years. Talk about timing, right? October 2018 to December 2020, you were an AI ambassador for Microsoft. Right. And then months later, or right around that time, actually, kind of all this GPT just started to hit the shelves. So talk a little bit about what your experience was like as an AI ambassador, and also being early to the party. It must have been very difficult to advocate for something that now I think would be very easy to advocate for and to be an ambassador for.
Yeah, I mean, it was great because I got to talk to a lot of people I normally wouldn't get to talk to,
Mm.
go in and talk to events and things. And it was sort of nice being on the inside, understanding from that perspective at the time what the plan was. And one of the things one of the fundamental questions we had to do if we were trying to somebody we found a use case for a customer or something that an account team did that they want to use AI for, we would have to go through this review process.
Mhm.
And one of the things, like ethics and stuff that comes in, one of the things was just because we can do it, should we do it? Right? Because you
Yeah.
look at something here where you could automate something or do something where it could decimate the only employer in town of a developing country. Is that the right thing to do just because you can?
Yeah.
So that was some of the discussion with philosophical discussions and stuff that we would get to have, and that we were sort of taking crowdsourcing, if you will. What do you think you could use AI for? What do you think would be a good use for that? And we got to do some of that. So it was really just, it's like sometimes you're in this area where there's no rules, there's no rule book, and you're trying to figure out your way and what's a good path forward. You're stuck in sort of this, in a sailing, example, you're sort of stuck at the start of the race. You've got some science of where the wind may be blowing and stuff, but the wind changes,
Yeah.
based off what's going on. And that will, the end of the road, we want to be here, but my road there is like over here, over there. It's not a straight, if you ever watch sailing, it's not a straight path.
Yeah.
So a lot of learning and a lot of listening. And I think that's helped them end up where they are today.
Sure. And I think where they are today and where we all are, I think, and we talked about this a little bit before the show. I had an episode a week or two ago about Microsoft Copilot.
Mhm.
So from someone that worked there for 20 years.
Mhm.
My hot take, Doug, is that Microsoft Copilot is going to be is going to have a much greater impact than even ChatGPT has had over the last year. Probably, I would say 5x, 10x. What's your thoughts on that? And just real quick, if you are new, Microsoft Copilot is essentially, think of generative AI, but on your operating system. So if you're using Microsoft 365 and the newest version of their operating system, having that generative AI follow you around in a good way, I think, from all your different programs. So Doug, talk a little bit about what you think Microsoft 365 Copilot means specifically for the future of work.
Are you still running in circles trying to figure out how to actually grow your business with AI? Maybe your company has been tinkering with large language models for a year or more, but can't really get traction to find ROI on Gen AI. Hey, this is Jordan Wilson, host of this very podcast. Companies like Adobe, Microsoft, and NVIDIA have partnered with us because they trust our expertise in educating the masses around generative AI to get ahead. And some of the most innovative companies in the country hire us to help with their AI strategy and to train hundreds of their employees on how to use Gen AI. So whether you're looking for ChatGPT training for thousands or just need help building your front-end AI strategy, you can partner with us too, just like some of the biggest companies in the world do. Go to youreverydayai.com/partner to get in contact with our team, or you can just click on the partner section of our website. We'll help you stop running in those AI circles and help get your team ahead and build a straight path to ROI on Gen AI.
Well, I go back, when I was there, you may remember Clippy.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So that was an early attempt based off the technology we had at the time to be helpful, to go on and help you do. I see you're doing, Saturday Night Live did a great skit on the Clippy thing. Go watch that YouTube. I watch that every now and then just to laugh. But it got a bad rap, but it was somewhat ahead of its time.
Mhm.
But because the back end wasn't there to make it extremely useful, right? So it was sort of, we did the same thing with tablet. So when I was started out, I was in the OEM division. We did Windows XP, and then we had the tablet PC edition. So you had pen and paper. That was always Bill Gates's big thing. So pen on a thing. But the hardware and software, the hardware really wasn't there to support it because they weighed 8 pounds and had a 40-minute battery life. It was just not until you came out with the iPad and stuff that form factor really didn't come to life. But so I think Clippy was the same thing. Now you've got the back end to do it, and it can
Mhm.
be more useful. instead of saying, "Hey, it looks like you're doing," it simply says, you can tell it what to do. It's a little bit more of like a virtual assistant, truly, that responds when you ask it to do, not be so pushy that pops up everywhere and just annoys the hell out of you. So it's it's there. You go back to the early thing. It's rough when you've got a great idea, but there's not the back end to support it. I think this is great timing, and it makes a lot of sense because Office and everybody, so many people use that. And going back to the PowerPoint, if you go back there, they had this sort of presentation and coach, right? They built that feature in to say, hey, look, you got way too damn many words on this slide. Yeah, I have to apologize because we allow you to do bad slides. There's there's a reason when I was there that Death by PowerPoint has a true, because people would abuse it. How much stuff can I cram on here?
Yeah.
So in using things, knowing what makes a good presentation stuff, it helps you not shoot yourself in the foot. So I think this is the good improved Clippy. I don't think it'll go away.
Yeah.
Although there are privacy concerns and stuff that you have about that too.
Oh, absolutely. And just as a reminder, if you are just tuning in now, we have Doug Thompson joining the Everyday AI show, talking about storytelling, AI, but also, his background at Microsoft. So one question here, I want to bring up Jackie's comment here. So talking, saying Copilot is expensive to incorporate, been told by many enterprise companies that. I'd like to get your take on that, Doug. And I have a hot take as well, because I believe that, Microsoft Copilot is about, I think it's $30 a month. To kind of incorporate per user. So yeah, if enterprise companies have, hundreds or thousands of employees, it definitely is a big cost to incur. So again, not asking you to put your Microsoft, sales cap on, but I have a hot take on this. But I want to know what you think, Doug, about this, because it is, I think we've been trained to expect very cheap, because the $20 a month for ChatGPT and a lot of these tools are even free to use. So what's your take on this price of, or on this piece of the price of generative AI for enterprise companies?
Yeah, I mean, I would have to think, again, I haven't been in that realm for a long time, but I know just some current environment that everybody's looking to trim IT expenses, which it's a battle. Is it a strategic asset for you, or is it a nuisance that you have to have? I mean, they do it from a security standpoint as well, as they try to go in and cut budgets here. Well, we don't need that, right? We've got, and they can't hire people to do it because there's not enough of the people to do the security. But I think that, for everybody in there, a janitor doesn't necessarily need that access, right? But if you have knowledge workers who are truly trying to do this, then you have to evaluate how much time are they spending trying to do it manually. It's not, the object is in a from a society standpoint, the object's not to eliminate humans, it's to make them more productive at what they do. There's a lot of job openings, although they've had layoffs too that come up. So it's sort of a mixed thing. I think you covered it on there, that there is a risk that this will replace some people. But every transition that you've had in history, there's nobody making ice boxes anymore, although Yeti does a pretty good job with the cooler.
That's true, right?
Right. So you have to go ahead and sort of evolve, but you do it judiciously. It's not for everybody there. So the cost is based off how you are going to use it, the number of employees and stuff. I don't know what the licensing is for that. It probably goes into the enterprise suite somehow.
Yeah.
But it's always a value thing. What do you see the value there? If not, and you're not going to use it, when I was at Microsoft, we had so many people there that would buy a suite of stuff and not use half of it. They'd go out and buy a third party thing to go do it because they liked it better or whatever. And it's just not a smart way to spend money if you're just going to do it and not use it. Right here.
Yeah.
We're going to shelfware, as we would call it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Gosh, don't remind me about my shelfware right now, Doug. I'll say this, and I'm echoing Douglas's comment here, saying $30 a month for software that multiplies your productivity is actually a savings. I'm in that vein because, I had a guest on a couple of months ago, Corey Warfield, and I'll make sure to drop the link to this later. But, he essentially said that the companies that aren't using generative AI top to bottom are putting themselves at risk to go out of business, in 18 months. And I agree with that. I say this, even for enterprise even for enterprise customers, if they're not willing to pay that $30 a month, that just means, in my head, that they're putting themselves at risk to lose their market share by far, because I think for these tools that are 20, 30, 50, I mean, even $100 a month, you make that up, within a couple clicks of using it correctly. I do want to I want to transition a little bit here, Doug, because we have some great comments that I want to get to. So again, thank you everyone for getting in your comments for Doug. So let's get this one here. So Dr. Harvey Castor asking, any tips regarding storytelling, top suggestion on which AI tools to use, and any out of the box recommendations. So yeah, do you have any specific, AI kind of tools or softwares that you think can help in storytelling?
Yeah, again, Chat GPT used the right way, prompt and stuff can definitely help with doing that. I haven't tried a lot. I have seen some out there that sort of, they're almost like a coach to help you do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Maybe for me, for the elementary type stuff, it may be okay for somebody if you want to get to, say, like, I don't know, 5th grade, 6th grade level of doing it, or maybe I haven't used them. But those are the things. But the storytelling piece of that is think about when you're, again, starting with what the message you want to convey, but think about how you talk to your friends,
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily your coworkers. What I find, especially with very smart people like our doctor friend here, probably, is that when they're talking to their peers, it's a totally different conversation they have because everybody has the same base level of knowledge,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so you take shortcuts. You talk about things that are sort of with the 3-letter acronyms or whatever you use. And where the normal person or your audience and stuff does not use that, they don't understand and they will just tune you out. So that's why I think about, but you talk to your friends that don't understand, or your some of your family that doesn't, that, how do you talk to them and explain it? Because that's the language you may think to do if you're not talking to, again, your peers. Go talk to them about that. Now, if it's a scientific paper and you got a bunch of Sheldons out in the audience and stuff, then, that's fine. Nerd out, because that's what they expect. But
Right.
if you're talking to that's the thing I do when I'm going to talk technology to somebody. I may talking to a chief marketing officer or something who doesn't really care about technology at all. I got a problem. Can
Yeah.
you help me do that?
Yeah.
And that's the language, again, getting back to starting your story with your audience that's the language that I get rid of. I've been on this mission for probably close to a decade to end text-splaining, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you take that, you combine mansplaining with technology, and that's what a lot of very smart people do is they text-splain. It's death by features, function, speed.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody cares about that. Don't use it. How does this help me, right?
Yeah.
Focus on that. Who's your audience? What do they need? And start there.
Yeah, that's great advice. And I think so many times, Doug, especially when we see, so many new AI softwares and tools, I think we rush to try to use the next versus just focusing on what you said is who am I talking to? What are their problems? And really just starting there. I'm actually curious, Woozy, thank you for this question, because I'm sure in Doug's lifetime, he's heard a lot of great stories. So Woozy's question right here is asking you, what's your most memorable story that you've heard in a sales pitch demo? So kind of what's that most impressive or memorable story that you've heard kind of in the business world, Doug?
Wow, I'm glad you didn't ask what my best one was, because honestly, the pitch, I'll answer his question in just a minute, but the pitch that I use is different every time. The best ones that I've had, somebody's come up to me after and said, that you finally said something I understood. I said, good. Could you tell me what I said? Because I honestly don't remember. Because I get it's a little bit of an improv type thing. Is again, I'm taking what environment they're in, questions that come up about it. I talk to people ahead of time. I do a little LinkedIn stalking on who I'm talking to. So I'm trying to get this picture here of what I want to do. Then I'll tailor the core message. Maybe there's 5 or 6 different things to that. So the best things that I've had is that Steve Jobs was the best technical storyteller that I've ever seen. The way that he could get us to, I didn't know I needed 10,000 songs in my pocket till he told me about it. Right. So those are the best pitches and all that I've ever seen. That they're not really a pitch. They are a story that connects with something that I latently want, or I don't even know that I want. That would be cool. Then makes me go take an action to go do that. So those are the best ones. If you want examples, again, Steve Jobs, I do this. A guy that did a really good job, was a mentor of mine, was James Whitaker. He worked for Microsoft and Google, then back at Microsoft. Now he's out brewing beer and telling stories or stuff. something like that. Miri Rodriguez is a good technical. She's got a book called Brand Storytelling.
Hmm.
They were both mentors of mine. But Steve Jobs, by and far, if you want to sort of see a technical story done well, that's it. And the best sales pitch is not a pitch at all. It is
Hmm.
something a story that connects, that makes me want to go take an action and part with my hard-earned money to go do something.
Yeah, and even to add on to that, and I think it's actually easier now to explain after hearing you say it, Doug.
Mhm.
I think effective stories are not necessarily selling. You have all these different copywriting, very famous copywriting techniques. ADA, features and benefits, and I think what you just said right there, Doug, is amazing. Is the best stories aren't taking those traditional quote unquote copywriting routes. They're helping you imagine how much better your life would be with something, but not talking about it through the features and benefits or attention and all these other traditional writing techniques, which is extremely interesting. So one other thing, Doug, I want to ask, what is because from your perspective, you've seen a lot. You've seen a lot of technical innovation. You kind of understand where consumers are from working on the front end and now helping them on the back end. Where do you see just the future of work going, and maybe even the future of storytelling? Because I think it changes every day, and I think consumer behavior is changing. So where do you see kind of the future of storytelling going, especially with AI?
Yeah, I mean, well, unfortunately, the attention span of humans keeps going down and down and down. So the art of storytelling gets to be, how concise can I do that? And it really sort of becomes sort of this, here's this hook, and then maybe one chance to back it up to get interest, maybe two very short ones, but it needs to happen in less than 2 minutes.
Mm.
And that's really, I mean, when you're giving a presentation, one of the things you got about 2 minutes for people to decide yay or nay. Am I leaving the back of the room, or am I going to give this person some time? So you really have to have that hook that goes do that. So that won't change. And I use storytelling because there'll always be things for good books, things like that, right? So the longer form stuff will be there.
Mhm.
That really doesn't change that much, other than self-publishing. And how do you know that it's not ChatGPT that wrote the whole thing? I think that the authors that still put their secret sauce, that's step 8 that I call. There's a bunch of different things I have that is your secret sauce into that makes that connection with people and all that. I saw somebody mention Simon Sinek earlier. Starting with why is a great thing to do, but he has some great thoughts. Seth Godin has a lot of great thoughts and stuff that go in it that that didn't come from ChatGPT.
Right.
So you can connect with that. But from the pitch perspective and all that, or selling, or these other, when I've got to do this, then I think you have to just learn to be very concise.
Mm.
And I've had mixed results with ChatGPT being very concise and totally missing the point. Well, yeah, okay, you got me 100 words. But what the hell did we lost the essence of what was going on, right? And you explained it to me as it's the model and stuff that they use as predictive type thing. It should get better over time, but right now it's sort of a challenge, right? And so you have to sort of evolve. And I totally lost the first part of that question. She got me on storytelling on that, but the future of work here, I think.
Yeah.
Is what it was.
Let's talk about that quick. Yeah.
I started out, my first degree was in industrial electronics and electricity, and I had assembly code language was the thing that I had, because at the time one of the oil booms was going, and I lived in Southeast Texas, and there were 5 jobs for every person. Most of them were offshore, and this was back in the early 80s, where $50,000 a year was a lot. That was good pay. And by the time I graduated, we had a bust, and there were 5 people for every job. So I had to go learn to do something else. I worked on copy. I was a copier technician for a while. Again, curiosity came, but I always had that curious thing about, okay, what's this technology do? How does it work? I was a kid that would take things apart and try to put things back together without too many extra pieces. Right. That's just the way you have to have that curiosity. You have to, if you just simply ignore what is out there on the fringe. And I think you told me you had like a gazillion, you talked about shelfware. You tried everything that came out just to see what it was and see, is there some potential and stuff there? That's what you have to do. You have to have that curious mindset to go on and do that, or you can't trust just because I've always done it and I'm good at this, turning a knob or do something like that. That's not always going to be there. There will be some automation. There will be some things that happen. So learning to use AI and learning to do these other things, that puts you a step above everybody else that has no interest in doing it, because it's hard, or I don't like it. Right there, that's sort of the things. It's adapt or die almost. I mean, that's the sad thing about it.
Yeah. What a note to end on, right? Adapt or die.
Adapt or suffer. How about that?
Yeah, I know, right? So we've been over, your background. We talked about your time at Microsoft, how to tell better stories. But as we wrap up here, what is the one kind of takeaway that you hope people, listening, whether it's improving their storytelling through AI or just maybe not using AI, but what's your one takeaway piece of advice for everyone listening out there to just tell more impactful stories, whether using AI or not?
If I boiled it down to one phrase, the story is not about you. It's about the listener. It's about what they can get out of it. You're taking them on a journey. They're investing their time with you. They want something out of that. That's the best story, is the one that's not about me. I'm simply the vehicle of which that story is told. Absolutely.
It reminds me, when people ask for copywriting tips, my number one thing is as well, no one cares about you. I think that's important to keep in mind, right? So Doug, thank you so much for joining us. We covered a lot. As a reminder, make sure to check out today's newsletter. We're going to be sharing a lot more from Doug, hopefully sharing some great resources and other things from his website. And also, if you haven't already, please make sure that you do go to youreverydayai.com, sign up for that free daily newsletter where we will be breaking down today's episode in great detail. So don't worry if you missed it all or tuned in late. We got you. Doug, thanks again so much for joining us. And I hope to see everyone else back for another day of Everyday AI. Thanks, y'all.
Thanks.
And that's a wrap for today's edition of Everyday AI. Thanks for joining us. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and leave us a rating. It helps keep us going. For a little more AI magic, visit youreverydayai.com and sign up to our daily newsletter so you don't get left behind. Go break some barriers, and we'll see you next time.